All right, welcome to the Senate Committee on Education, and welcome to those that are present here in Carson City and online and by phone. Secretary, please call the roll.
Vice Chair Don Darrell-Loop. Senator Hardy. Senator Hammond. Senator Lang.
Here.
Senator Buck. Senator Dunyate. Chair Dennis.
Here, thank you. We do have a quorum. Everyone's here. I think I'm just going to skip the housekeeping stuff for today. I think everybody's got it down, and but if there are those that want to give public comment, we will do that at the end. So you just have to go in and register, and if you're going by phone, they'll give you the information. And I'll limit that to 2 minutes per person. And that's it. We're going to follow the work session in order. I didn't have any specific order that I don't want to change the order. So we will start with our work sessions, and we're going to start with AB. We will consider AB 57 this term.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jen Sturm, Committee Policy Analyst. Our first bill on work session today is Assembly Bill 57, which was presented by Washoe County School District on April 21st. The bill suspends until school year 2023 to 24 the current requirement that pupil growth account for 15% of the evaluation of a teacher or administrator who provides direct instructional services to pupils. The bill also suspends until school year 2023-24 the current requirement to establish pupil learning goals, with the exception that a teacher who is subject to an agreement between a school district and an employee organization, which was entered into before the effective date of this bill, and that provides an incentive to teachers based on pupil learning goals, may continue to develop learning goals to satisfy the requirements of that agreement. In such a case, the learning goal will account for 0% of the teacher's evaluation. The Washoe County School District proposed the following amendments, which are attached to the work session document. The first one would remove school year 2020 to 2021 and school year 2022 to 23 from the years in which pupil growth accounts for 0% on a teacher or administrator's evaluation. And the second proposal would add language that would hold teachers harmless who did not meet their student learning goal in school year 2020 to 2021. Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any questions on the amendments? We do have Washoe is here. If you could come up. Thank you, Senator Hammond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I understood your amendments because I think that the original was hold harmless for 2 years and then go to the 15. And I think there was suggestions that maybe you could slide back into the 15. And that is that effectively what happens with this?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Lindsay Anderson on behalf of the Washoe County School District. We tried to incorporate the concerns that we heard during the hearing into this. I think you, Senator Hammond, suggested going back to 7.5%, something like that, in the third year. Based on conversations with other stakeholders, we basically eliminated that third year as part of this. So it will go 0% in the next school year and then back to 15% in its entirety in the second year of the biennium, which is the 2022-2023 school year.
Awesome. Thank you very much. That's all I need to know.
Thank you. And then in the as far as the current year, that got taken out, but is there a piece in here about that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, Lindsay Anderson for the Washoe County School District. We heard the concern about teachers right now in the current school year, but because evaluations are already complete, we didn't want everyone to have to redo their evaluation. But we do include language that would hold current teachers in this current school year harmless on their student learning goals if it was negatively impacting their overall evaluation.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Do we as a committee have any other questions on the bill? Okay, I will entertain a motion. The motion would, I don't know what I did with it.
Amend, do pass.
Amend and do pass. We have a motion from Senator Don Darrell-Loop, amend and do pass. Second, Senator Hammond. Discussion. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. So we have Senator Buck is a nay. I guess just so I'd be clear on the record. Okay, let's go to Assembly Bill 231. Senator Lang, would you do the floor statement on that one? Okay, let's go to Assembly Bill 231. Ms. Stern.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jen Sturm for the record. The next bill is Assembly Bill 231, which is sponsored by Woman Cohen and Assemblywoman Krasner. We heard this bill at our last meeting on May 12th. The bill requires the State Board of Education to create a subcommittee to review and make recommendations on providing instruction on the Holocaust and other genocides, including the Armenian, Cambodian, Darfur, Guatemalan, and Rwandan genocides in social studies and language arts courses. Furthermore, AB 231 requires the State Board to report its findings and recommendations to the Legislative Committee on Education in each even-numbered year. After considering the State Board's report, the LCE must submit its considerations and any recommendations to the Legislature. And at this time, there are no proposed amendments. Mr. Chair.
Questions? Have a motion do pass. I think that's, do pass from Senator Hardy and second from Senator Buck. Further discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Motion carries. Okay, let's consider AB 261. Senator Hardy, would you do the floor statement? Okay, let's consider 261.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jen Sturm, Committee Policy Analyst. The next bill is Assembly Bill 261, which was presented by Assemblywoman Anderson on May 3rd. The bill requires the Board of Trustees of a school district or the governing body of a charter school to ensure that instruction is provided to pupils enrolled in kindergarten through grade 12 on the history and contributions to science, the arts, and humanities of certain groups of persons. Additionally, the bill requires the instruction to be 1, included in the standards of content and performance established by the Council to establish academic standards for public schools, 2, age appropriate, and 3, included in one or more courses of study for which the Council has established relevant standards of content and performance. Finally, AB 261 prohibits the State Board of Education from selecting instructional materials, including, without limitation, a textbook for use in public schools unless the instructional materials accurately portray the history and contributions to science, the arts, and humanities of the specified groups of persons. And Mr. Chair, there are no proposed amendments at this time.
Discussion. Senator Hardy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just read it as prohibits, and that's a pretty broad prohibition of instructional materials over a large range of subjects, so I will be voting no on this.
Okay, any discussion? Senator Doñate.
Thank you so much, Chair Dennis. I want to thank the Assemblywoman for bringing this bill forward. As we talk about diversity and inclusion, we want to make sure that our kids are taught accurately to understand the values of people who don't look like them. And I think there's a big amount of history that several different groups provide to our state, and it's important that they know the contributions and how we got here. So I will be voting in support, and thank you very much.
Okay, other discussion?
I have a question to the maker, actually.
Senator Lang, just so the record, go
Oh,
ahead. I just want to make sure I put your name on the record.
Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead.
Hi, Assemblywoman. I just am looking at the supporting documents in the fiscal notes, and I just wonder if you could comment on those, because I see that there's almost a $95,000 fiscal note from Lander County something from Douglas, 80,000 from White Pine. That's a lot of money.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Dennis. Through you to Senator Lang, Natha Anderson, Assemblymember Natha Anderson. I have been working with Mary Pruszynski, and I just texted her to say, are there any updates with this? Initially, I believe that some of the smaller county or the other counties were under the impression that this was trying to get done right away. I was trying to get that clarification to them that this is in the current cycle. And so that's where those fiscal notes are coming from. I have not received any information back from Ms. Pruszynski, seeing whether or not those things have in fact been removed. Because you'll notice that Clark County also had that in the initial numbers. Once I clarified that with Mr. Keating, that number was removed from them as well. And I'm trying to still double check about that.
Follow-up, Chair?
Yeah, well, yes.
Sure,
Go ahead.
thank you. So I thought that was the case, and I think there's language I read in your bill about getting on the cycle. And so I know that I had talked to them about something like that, and it removed the fiscal note, so I'm thinking they're going to get removed.
Through Chair Dennis to Senator Lang, Assemblymember Anderson, 100% agree, and hope, hope, hope.
Can you define what a cycle is, just so that we have that on the record?
Thank you, Senator Dennis. Yes, Assemblymember Anderson. The cycle is the review of our curriculum materials goes through 2 different cycles. I've learned this from the Department of Education. The first cycle is they review the standards, make sure that their stakeholders are involved in this review, and then they review, and it goes like 1 year, I want to say it's, and I do not have the cycle in front of me, but 1 year it might be science, the following year it might be social studies, the following year it might be math, etc. English, language arts, PE, and so it goes through the whole curriculum, so they're not trying to do every single curriculum, double checking the standards as well as textbooks and instructional materials at the same year. So this is where there's a cycle. Traditionally, it is a 7-year cycle. At times, it is a 9-year cycle, depending upon where exactly things land. I believe Senator Dondero Loop also has some more information about that, because I think she's been very intimate with that cycle based upon her experience as a textbook representative at times. If I didn't know if she wanted to add more information to it, but that's the process that it usually goes through. So you're not doing all curriculum standards every year. Instead, it's a cycle of 7 to 9 years, depending upon where the district is, as well as depending upon where the state is.
Thank you. Senator Underloop.
Thank you very much. And yes, the cycle is 7 years, and Assemblywoman is absolutely right. It cycles through each curriculum area so as to not overload school districts. And then on top of that, a school district can, like when we had the downturn, they put off purchasing for a year or two. But when the textbook is decided upon and the purchases are made, they have 4 years to get within that textbook. So if they had purchased new textbooks the year before, they're not mandated to purchase another textbook that next year. They would have 4 years to roll into that new textbook. And then if I may, Mr. Chair, I was just going to respond to where it says Section 2, it prohibits the state board from selecting instructional materials, including without limitation for use in public schools unless the instructional materials accurately portray the history and contributions to science, arts, and humanities. That is actually in law. I mean, that's already in the NRS. It's so that we have accurate information. It would be no different than if we had an English textbook that accurately portrayed English grammar. So that's actually already in the NRS. So thank you very much, Assemblywoman Anderson.
Thank you for that. I'm going to have, if we have Mr. Asher, if you could verify that. She was reading from that, but I just want it, as far as the prohibition, right?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Asher Killian, Committee Counsel. So if you look at the bill itself, Section 2 of the bill is the section that is amending NRS 389-850 to add the new subsection 3 about instructional materials. But if you look up in subsections 1 and 2 of the existing law, that's where Those existing provisions are that prohibit the state board from selecting a textbook unless it determines that the textbook adequately supports standards for the subject area and adequately portrays the cultural and racial diversity of our society, including a few other things. So that's where related material is already in existing law.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Dondarello, for bringing that up. Any other questions? Yep, Senator Lang.
Would you entertain a motion?
Sure.
I move that we do pass AB 261.
We have a motion to do pass from Senator Lang, second from Senator Dondarello. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. And opposed, nay? So Senator Hardy, Senator Hammond, Senator Buck, or vote nay. Thank you. Okay, let's see. I'm going to have Senator Doñate, would you do the floor? All right, let's consider AB 266.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jen Sturm, Committee Policy Analyst. The next bill is AB 266, which was presented by Assemblywoman Miller on May 5th. The bill prohibits administrators other than licensed educational personnel who may be present in a classroom but do not teach every pupil in the classroom, teachers not actively teaching during a class period, and teachers who do not teach a subject area for which the ratio of pupils per licensed teacher is being determined, from being counted in determining the pupil-to-teacher ratio. The bill also requires the Board of Trustees of a school district, to the extent money is available, to determine the number of job vacancies in the school district based on the number of licensed teachers that would be needed to achieve the recommended pupil-to-teacher ratio, and requires that related information be posted on the board's website. The Board of Trustees must also submit to the Legislative Committee on Education a report containing certain information about teachers participating in an alternative route to licensure program. Finally, the bill requires a person evaluating a teacher responsible for a class that exceeds the ratio recommendations to award the teacher additional weight on applicable criteria under the statewide performance evaluation system. And Assemblywoman Miller proposed several amendments which are attached to the work session document. And I'll briefly go over the general concepts there. The first proposed amendment would revise the language in subsection 2F of section 4 to apply the additional weight for a teacher with a number of pupils that exceeds the applicable class size ratio only if the teacher is post-probationary and was rated as effective or better. B, the revised language would prohibit the additional weight from raising the score on any criterion above the maximum score that would otherwise be possible for a teacher rated as highly effective. And C, it would more clearly describe the factors to which the additional weight should apply. The second general proposed amendment would add a new transitory provision requiring that the provisions of subsection 2F of NRS 391.465, as amended by section 4 of this bill, be applied to any evaluation of an applicable teacher during the 2021 to 22 school year and each subsequent school year. And finally, the proposed amendment would revise the effective date of the bill to make the provisions of section 4 effective upon passage and approval. And then on January 1st, 2022 for all other purposes. Mr. Chair.
Okay, questions? Yeah, Senator Buck.
Just something for the record, Chair Dennis. So if we have two teachers that teach with the same exact class size, but one of them has higher student growth percentile than the other, basically we're saying that class size is going to rule evaluations. And so I'll be voting no today.
Okay, thank you. Other comments? Do we need any clarification on the amendment? Okay, I think Senator Dondarello.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I actually do think it would be helpful for our sponsor to clarify, because I think there's some misunderstanding about what actually this does and what was changed with the amendment. I think that might help. Thank you.
Assemblywoman, welcome.
Thank you, Chair Dennis, and thank you, Senator Dondera Loop, for the invitation. I am Assemblywoman Brittany Miller for the record. And so to clarify that comment and what the amendment is about is, first, nothing about student learning goals or student achievement data is being changed here. This is regarding certain indicators within their NEPF. So I don't want to go back into a bill hearing, but what the amendment does, it will still be the same exact value-based formula as before. The difference now is that it will only apply to, based on hearing the concerns of certain concerns when it comes to teachers and performance and evaluations, that first it will only apply to those who are off of probation, the first 3-year probation. It also will only apply to those who are already performing at an effective or highly effective level. With that, it still remains just in those specific 3 indicators that are within the instructional category and the 2 standards that are within the professional category. So it actually does not have anything to do with the student learning achievement. The only other change too was that there were 2 different formulas impacting instructional and professional standards. And now it is streamlined so that the value-based, meaning if you're 10% over class size ratio, if you're 30% over class size ratio, will be applied in both sections.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you. We do need to get also, stay there for just a second in case something comes up. I know the Department of Ed is on the line. We need them to clarify the fiscal note. And I know we have Mrs. Gonzalez here, so if you could weigh in on that.
Chair Dennis, Vice Chair Dondera Loop, members of the committee, Felicia Gonzalez for the record. I want to first thank Assemblywoman Miller for the opportunity to work with her on this amendment. This amendment will still require the same fiscal note as is noted in the work session document. The amendment requires a calculation based on a percentage over ratio, which will require work to embed the calculation into the evaluation tool to ensure accuracy. It will also require NDE staff to revise the evaluation tool to capture the original calculation and the weighted score. In addition, it will require NDE staff to review previously approved alternate tools used by some districts to ensure that those tools are in compliance and are accurately calculating the weighted score, and revise protocols and provide professional development before the start of the next school year. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to make sure we got clarity. All right, thank you very much. No other questions? Okay, thank you very much. I will entertain a motion. It would be an amend and do pass. A motion amend and do pass from Senator Dondera Loop, second from Senator Doñate. Further discussion on the motion. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Was that Hardy, Buck, and Hammond? Okay. All right, motion passes. Let's see, who haven't I picked on yet? Dondera Loop, would you, Senator? Okay, so we'll have Senator Dondera Loop do the floor statement. So now let's consider AB 362.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jen Sturm, Committee Policy Analyst. The next bill on work session is Assembly Bill 362, which is sponsored by Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson. We heard this bill on May 3rd. The bill requires the Board of Trustees of the College Savings Plans of Nevada to adopt and, as necessary, revise a policy for the use of any money in the Nevada Higher Education Prepaid Tuition Trust Fund that is in excess of the amount of money determined by the board to be required to establish a guaranteed rate for tuition under a prepaid tuition contract. The bill also authorizes the use of money in the trust fund for the payment of qualified higher education expenses for qualified beneficiaries. And Mr. Chair, there are no proposed amendments at this time.
Okay, any questions? And then I will entertain a motion to do pass. Senator Doñate makes the motion to do pass. Second, Senator Lang. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Okay, motion carries. Senator Buck, would you do the floor statement? Thank you. Okay, that's all the business that we have. Let's go to public comment. Anyone wishing to give public comment here in the room, come forward. We do have one. And then after we're done, we will go to online. So welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris Daly, Nevada State Education Association, the voice of Nevada educators for over 120 years. Tomorrow morning, the K-12 education budget will be deliberated by the money committees. While I know that a few of you serve both here on education and on finance, after all of your education policy discussions this session, I know each of you appreciate the significant intersection of education policy and education funding. K-12 public education has been woefully underfunded for decades, ranking 48th among the states in per pupil funding. Nevada also has the largest student-to-teacher ratio in the country. A $156 million cut to class size reduction over the next biennium would mean a loss of about 1,000 teachers across the state, meaning even more students packed into Nevada classrooms. Cuts proposed to early literacy supports threaten gains we've made in the achievement of fourth graders. You've heard me talk about this all session, but today I'd like to read comments from ESE member Erica Nungare, who is working right now as a special education paraprofessional in Clark County. Erica writes, "What is unique about my position is not only do I have the pleasure of working with wonderful students in the special ed department, I assist students when they are placed in a general education classroom setting. It's difficult to express the dire urgency. Our classrooms are so overcrowded they become standing room only, making instructional time nearly impossible and unfair to our students. I work with teachers that walk in classrooms on their first day with no curriculum. I've waited for my students on many occasions before and after school for over an hour to receive transportation. Funding affects every sector of education down to the basic fundamentals of having a pencil or paper for our students, which is surprisingly, even those items are scarce in our district. My school site alone this year will lose several fantastic teachers to different states or other professions. The staffing losses include phenomenal support professionals who help run our schools. I urge you to please fund our schools and not only make Nevada #1 in tourism, but #1 in education." Let me just add that education policy and all the efforts of this committee since the interim are subject to the budget decisions made in the other hearing rooms. As the Senate's resident experts in education, I would ask each of you to be advocates and lobbyists on behalf of public schools over the last 2 weeks. Please engage your colleagues in finance, in the hallways, in the caucus rooms, on the importance of education funding and the interconnectedness of the work you've done here and their work on the budget. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room wishing to give public comment, please come forward. Go ahead. You need to push the button now.
My name is Emily Mimnaugh, Mimanaughg. I'm a local Nevada attorney, and I'm actually here on behalf of the Pacific Justice Institute Center for Public Policy. I would like to comment briefly on AB 261 before it becomes Nevada law. I would just like to note that we believe it is both unnecessary and under-inclusive. We fully support Nevada's education commitment to, I quote, an education that portrays the cultural and racial diversity of our society, As you noted, however, that is already incorporated into the law, so we believe it is unnecessary. We also believe it's under-inclusive because it selects only 7 groups, and it does not explain why those groups and not other groups are being excluded. We therefore propose that it should not be turned into law unless additional language is added to prevent discrimination. To do that, we propose including language from the Civil Rights Act of 1964 that prevents discrimination for the inclusion of material on the basis of an individual's race, color, religion, sex, national origin, or membership in any of the previously specified 7 groups of people. We urge you not to turn this into law unless it is truly inclusive. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? No one else here in person? Let's go online. Anyone wishing to give public comment? If we could queue up the first caller.
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to participate in public comment, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits, 137, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and you may begin. If you're having a hard time unmuting, please press star 6. Thank you, caller. We see that you are unmuted and you may proceed.
Good afternoon. I'd like to ask that AB 231 be amended to include the genocide of United States American slavery. I noticed that AB 231 had been amended to include certain genocides such as Darfur, Rwanda, Armenian, etc., but the enslavement of Black United States Americans has yet to be included in this list of genocides. The American slavery system was the longest lasting genocide in modern history, where millions of Black people had lost their lives due to murder, neglect, sickness, lynchings, massacres, and war. It's imperative that this part of history be taught to our children so they are not ignorant of the genocide of the United States Black American slavery system. I'd also like to offer the book From Here to Equality by Dr. William Darity, and also the book The New Jim Crow as a teaching tool to assist teachers in their classrooms while teaching this subject. The book From Here to Equality is a best-selling book that contains details of events regarding slavery and American life. Also, the book, The New Jim Crow, talks about the genocide of the war on drugs and how it impacted the lives of Black Americans. And I'd like to thank everyone for listening today, and we hope to see the bill amended to add the genocide of the Black American slaves. Thank you.
Could you restate your name for the record? We didn't get it at the beginning. Sounds like we must have lost her. Okay, can we
Brandy Hairston for the record.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Brandy Hairston for the record.
Can you spell that?
BRANDIHAIRSTON.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's go to the next caller.
Caller with the last 3 digits, 358, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and you may begin.
Hello, my name is Selena LaRue Hatch, LA_RUEHATCH. I'm calling for a dual purpose today to implore you to increase funding and advocate for funding with your colleagues for education, but also in support of AB 261. As a high school social studies teacher, I think that this is a critical change to the law and something that we need to see in our classrooms. I have a devastating story from my first year of teaching, in which I was teaching World War I and World War II and so much about European history. And I had a Black student ask me, Ms. LaRue, when are we going to get to learn about people that look like me? And being a first year teacher and using the curriculum that I had to say slavery and imperialism. when Europeans take over Africa. And that was it. That was it. That was the only time we talked about any history dealing with Black individuals. And that's not to, we didn't even talk about Asian individuals or Pacific Islanders. It was European history throughout. And since then, I have worked to make my practice more inclusive by essentially ignoring our textbook and finding other resources. And I hope that when it comes to a final vote, many of you will support a more inclusive law which represents our students better. On the other hand, I would also like to say on my textbooks, my current geography textbook lists 9/11 as a current event, and we have to draw in borders of countries that did not exist in 2002 when it was printed. And my world history textbook talks about this new thing called the internet. Our materials are outdated and we don't have the money to replace them. My class sizes are over 40 in each class. I have about 6 minutes of instructional time per student per week. This is unsustainable. It is harmful for our children, and we need something to change. And so I'm urging the members of this committee to work with your colleagues to please fund education adequately so that we can actually do our jobs and help the children of this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to the next caller.
Once again, if you'd like to participate in public comment, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. Chair, the public line is open and working. However, there are no callers at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll go ahead and close public comment. That is all the business that we have for today. Although our work is still not done, I know we have at least one bill that we just got it's actually on workforce development. So it'll be an interesting discussion. So we'll be scheduling that here in the future. We have no other items today to come before us. So with that, I want to thank everybody for all their hard work, and we are adjourned.